In the spring of 2007, a retired teacher in Ohio received a letter. Her pension fund had lost a significant portion of its value. She did not know what a CDO was. She did not know what 8AA meant. She had never heard of Moody's, but she was about to learn that people she had never met, in buildings she had never entered, had spent years assigning perfect safety ratings to products they either did not understand or did not want to understand. She was not alone. Pension funds in Norway, municipal investment pools in Florida, insurance companies in Japan, all of them had bought the same thing. All of them had trusted the same three letters: AAA. In 2007, Moody's rated 45,000 mortgage-related securities. Nearly all received AAA, the same rating given to U.S. Treasury bonds. Within 18 months, most were worthless. That number is not a rounding error. It is not bad luck. For a rating to be wrong that many times, at that scale in the same direction, the error has to be structural. The system didn't malfunction. It worked exactly as it was designed to, just not for the teacher in Ohio. Here is the paradox at the center of the 2008 financial crisis. The agencies paid to assess risk had a direct financial incentive to ignore it. The institutions that existed to protect the system were the ones quietly dismantling it, and the most unsettling part, no one broke any rules. There are three mechanisms that explain how this happened. Three structural decisions that, taken individually, each seemed rational. Taken together, they produced the largest financial catastrophe since the Great Depression. Before the 1970s, credit rating agencies were paid by investors. The people who needed accurate information about risk were the ones writing the checks. This mattered. If Moody's, or Standard & Poor's, issued a bad rating, investors lost money and they stopped paying for the service. The incentive was simple: be right or lose clients. Then the model changed. Starting in the early 1970s, agencies shifted to what became known as the issuer pays model. Now the companies issuing the bonds, the ones who needed a good rating to sell their product, were the ones paying the agencies to rate them. Think about what that means for one moment. Imagine if restaurants paid the health inspectors who graded them. Not a hypothetical distortion, an exact description of the system that rated trillions of dollars in financial products between 2000 and 2007. By 2006, structured finance represented roughly 44% of Moody's total revenue. S&P's revenue from rating these same products more than tripled between 2002 and 2007. The rating agencies weren't peripheral players in the credit boom. They were its direct financial beneficiaries. Here is what a CDO actually is. Imagine a tower. The ground floor is built from thousands of individual home mortgages, people borrowing money to buy houses. That raw material gets repackaged into a new structure with multiple floors, called tranches. The top floor gets paid first when homeowners make their monthly payments. If some homeowners default, the bottom floors absorb the losses first. The top floor, theoretically, almost never gets touched. That top floor is what received the AAA rating. Almost zero risk, according to the agencies. Safe enough for pension funds, safe enough for retirees. Between 2004 and 2007, over 80% of CDO tranches issued globally received AAA ratings. The Bank for International Settlements estimated the total volume reached into the tens of trillions of dollars. The conflict of interest wasn't hidden. It was the business model. Here is a detail that changes the picture entirely. Banks didn't have to use any single rating agency. They could and did shop around. They would bring a structured product to Moody's, to S&P, to Fitch, and ask each agency what rating they could achieve. Then they awarded the business to whoever offered the best outcome. This is called ratings shopping, and it turned competition, normally a mechanism for quality, into a mechanism for leniency. If Moody said they could only rate a tranche AA, and S&P said they could get it to AA, the bank went to S&P. Moody's learned from this. The next time, they found a way to get it to AAA. The agency that won the most business wasn't the one that was most accurate. It was the one that was most accommodating. During the 2010 Senate hearings on the financial crisis, internal emails from S&P analysts were made public. In one message from 2006, an analyst wrote that a deal was ridiculous and that they should not be rating it. The deal was rated anyway. In another exchange, an analyst admitted they had modeled a product using assumptions they knew were off, but the client had requested a specific rating, and the model was adjusted until it produced one. Jerome Fons, a former managing director at Moody's, testified before Congress that the agency's analytical culture had shifted decisively. Pressure to maintain market share, he said, had systematically compromised the independence of the rating process. In 2006, a CDO called Abacus 2007 AC1, structured with the involvement of Goldman Sachs, received high investment-grade ratings on most of its tranches. Within 2 years, investors had lost over $1 billion. What was not publicly disclosed at the time, a hedge fund called Paulson & Company had helped select the underlying mortgage bonds and had simultaneously bet against the product it helped construct. Goldman Sachs paid $550 million to the SEC to settle fraud charges in 2010. No criminal charges were filed. Abacus was not an anomaly. It was the architecture. By 2006, it would have required more than willpower to shut down the rating machine. 3 structural features had made the system self-reinforcing. Each one made it harder to interrupt. First, regulators had embedded rating agency designations into financial law itself. Bank capital requirements, insurance regulations, pension fund mandates, all were written with references to AAA ratings as the benchmark of safety. Regulators weren't just accepting the ratings, they had made the ratings legally constitutive of safety. Second, institutional investors, pension funds, insurance companies, sovereign wealth funds were frequently prohibited by their own charters from holding anything below investment grade. They were not making irrational decisions. They were following the rules as written. The rules said AAA was safe. The rules were wrong. Third, the rating agencies had spent years arguing, successfully, that their ratings were protected speech, opinions, not guarantees. This meant that when a rating was catastrophically wrong, there was no legal avenue for investors to recover losses from the agency itself. The Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission, the official U.S. government investigation completed in 2011, found that the failures of the 3 major rating agencies were essential cogs in the wheel of financial destruction. But essential cogs are rarely individually liable. 3 layers of structural protection, regulatory dependency, investor mandate, and legal immunity had created a rating system that was simultaneously indispensable and unaccountable. On June 19, 2007, Moody's downgraded 399 subprime mortgage bonds in a single day, more than it had downgraded in the entire previous year combined. This wasn't new information. The underlying mortgages had been deteriorating for months. The AAA ratings had been maintained and actively defended until the collapse became impossible to ignore. By then, those bonds had already been sold to the pension fund in Oslo, the insurance company in Tokyo, the retired teacher in Ohio. Return to the number, 45,000 securities. AAA, worthless. The Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission estimated that losses to U.S. household wealth between 2007 and 2009 reached approximately $11 trillion. Global losses were larger. The precise figure is contested. What is not contested is the mechanism. This was not a story of individual corruption. Nobody needed to be corrupt. The analysts who adjusted their models were following internal pressure. The executives who defended ratings were protecting revenue. The banks that shopped for the best grade were optimizing for their clients. The investors who bought TOPA products were following regulatory requirements. Every actor in the chain behaved rationally, according to the incentives in front of them, and the aggregate result was catastrophic. That is not a bug in market logic. That is market logic, correctly applied to a broken incentive structure. After 2008, reforms were introduced. The Dodd-Frank Act created new oversight mechanisms. Disclosure requirements were expanded. Some regulatory reliance on ratings was reduced. The issuer pays model was studied, debated, and ultimately left intact. It remains the dominant structure today. Right now, Moody's and S&P are rating the corporate bonds inside your pension fund, the government debt held by your bank, the municipal bonds financing the infrastructure of your city. The agencies doing that rating are still paid by the institutions issuing those products. The fundamental incentive that produced 2008 has not been removed. It has been managed, monitored, occasionally fined. The system was fixed. The incentive wasn't. The teacher in Ohio didn't know what a CDO was in 2007. She didn't need to. Someone else was paid to know, and paid by the wrong person to know it correctly. Who is paying the people who are supposed to protect you? That question doesn't have a comfortable answer. It has a structural one.